Welcome back to Season 2 of Light in the Battle, Emotional Detachment as a Tactical Advantage for Family Court. Light in the Battle is a podcast for autistic single mothers healing from narcissistic abuse, and it is a podcast where we get clearer, calmer, and spiritually and legally harder to mess with while we raise autistic kids. What I learned in my journey is that the legal advice and strategy for family court against people who make us feel confused or scared just doesn't land when emotions are running high. I'm seeing survivors lose over and over in court, and the kids are suffering. Then at some point I figured it out. The safe parent has to show that they are the stable, child-focused parent, both in all the evidence that they generate, all the emails and the texts they write, the medical reports that they obtain and all that, and in their demeanor in court. So I'm taking you on the journey that I traveled to get to a point where I detached completely. I cared just as much about my child's well-being. However, I got my head out of my butt and I worked on myself to get to a new and improved version of myself, a version that could play by the court's rules to show the truth and the patterns of behavior in an indisputable manner. And that's when my case turned around. This season has been a journey. We started with the trauma bond, PTSD and EMDR, forgiveness, codependency, fellowship and mentorship, gratitude. Now we're moving on to surrender today. Next time will be grief. And then we'll have a season finale. Starting from the episode about gratitude, here too, and in the next episode, so those 3 episodes, I'm going to be saying things that are likely to piss you off. Things that few people in the narcissistic abuse recovery space talk about. They're very focused on the early intervention content and on educating you about narcissism. And that is foundational. You have to learn to speak narcese and you have to understand what you're dealing with. But what they don't do, they don't push you out of your comfort zone and run the risk of pissing you off. Well, I'm autistic, so I'll do it. You're welcome. I'll say what people aren't saying on social media. And it's going to be the same in my episode about grief and in my last episode. If that happens and some of the stuff I'm saying triggers you, please know 3 things. First of all, the mindset shift that I'm teaching here, it's not optional. You have to get to this point in order to hear what influencers like Family Court Corner or Judge Anthony, what they teach. And you can see in the comments that it's working for their customers and followers. What they teach, you can't get to that point. You can't hear them out until you've gone through the mindset shift that I'm recommending here. Second, you resisting what I'm saying, doesn't say anything about you as a person. So you're allowed to feel any kind of way about what I'm saying here. All it's saying about you, if my content is triggering, is that you're just not ready. The timing is not right for you, and that's okay. So you can just go back more towards the beginning of the season, catch the season at whatever step you're in your real life, and then work your way back up to those final episodes. So today we're arriving at one of the last and more pivotal concepts to reach emotional detachment. Everything we've done so far was to get you here, and it's surrender. And I'm finishing my season with surrender and grief because these 2 actually require a lot more strength and stability than fighting your reality, struggling, and trying to control the outcomes. Letting go requires more courage than clinging on to the outcomes that we were hoping for, trying to control what's going on at the other parent's house. It's harder than following our instincts as protective moms, especially if those instincts and behaviors are rooted in PTSD, resentment, ego, codependency, all those things that we covered. I do want to remind you that I am on Facebook if you want to follow my page so you know when I'm dropping new episodes and maybe share any thoughts that you may have. I'm at facebook.com/lightinthebattle. And if you can please consider leaving this show a 5-star review on the platform that you're listening from. This will encourage the algorithm to bring my content to the attention of all the women who need to hear this. Let's start with the difference between surrender and grief, because initially I was going to do one episode about surrender and grief, and then as I was doing more research, I realized they're completely separate topics and separate steps that we need to go through. Surrender is a decision that you make, a conscious cognitive decision you make. Grief is an emotional process. Surrender is a conscious decision that you make. Grief is an emotional process. Surrender is a cognitive shift. It's a choice. It's a reframe. And that reframe is key for the mindset shifts that your lawyer will invite you to get to. It's an acceptance of reality. It's when you stop fighting against what feels like a net that's around you that you're stuck in, and you struggle against it and it just keeps getting tighter and tighter. Stop. Surrender is getting to a point where you can say, this is what is. I stop fighting it. We're not stopping the legal battle. We're actually getting ready to be a lot more impactful and powerful and strategic in court. What we're stopping is the mental, emotional battle. We're doing this intentionally in order to stabilize, to save our energy for what matters, and to create space. I'm autistic, so I have a very vivid imagination and I see metaphors everywhere. And what came to mind when I wanted to talk to you guys about surrender is the Chinese finger trap. If you want to Google what that is, if you don't know what it is, it's that woven tube. It's like 4 inches long, and you put your fingers in each end. And then the more you pull, the more you fight with it, the tighter it grips. And the only way out is actually to push inward first. So that's where my metaphor lies. You're stuck in a really shitty reality. The more you fight with it, the tighter it's going to get and the more exhausted you're going to become. The only way out is to relax and surrender. And that's when you start saving your energy and redirecting it towards the legal battle in an impactful, powerful manner. Grief, on the other hand, is an emotional release. Grief is what's going to fill that space. So you're trapped in, the Chinese finger trap or whatever hunting trap you can think about in the woods where the animal gets stuck in a net. You're trapped in there, and it's getting tighter the more you fight. With surrender, you relax and you create space in that trap, in that reality. Grief is what's going to fill that space after surrender, once it's quiet. And what grief sounds like is, this sucks. This hurts. I lost something, period. It's the emotional piece. It processes your loss. And if you try to grieve before you surrender, you'll stay stuck in rumination and in the mindset of that we've all been through. We've all been there. Maybe you're there today. This should not have happened. I don't want you to stay stuck there. I don't want you to stay stuck in resisting your reality. And so the correct order is surrender first and then grief. Because without surrender, you're still fighting reality. You're still attached to the outcomes. You're still in control mode. You cannot start. You don't have that space to go into the emotional experience of grieving the loss. And you'll stay in victim mode longer. Okay, so talking about what surrender is and isn't, you should absolutely not give up, accept injustice, and that people walk all over you. That's not what we're saying here. And we're definitely not agreeing with what happened. What we're doing when we start working on surrendering is back to the image of the Chinese finger trap. We no longer resist the reality. We're no longer trying to force outcomes and to negotiate with what should have been. And you shift into it is what it is. It sure is a giant pile of steaming shit, but it is what it is. This is the reality. Okay, now what do I do about it? It's letting go of what you cannot control so you can fully act on what you can control. A conscious choice you make to focus your energy on where it will have the most impact. At this point, I'm reminded of the serenity prayer. Lord, give me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change what I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let's say that again. Lord, give me the serenity to accept what I cannot change. That's the surrender. Give me the courage to change what I can change. You will have to go full force on the things you can control, and that will take energy, all the energy you're saving when you surrender. And give me the wisdom to know the difference. That can only come, the difference between what you can control and what you cannot control, that wisdom only comes after you've covered the steps that I recommend from episodes 15 to 24. Why is that so hard? Why is this episode going to be so triggering for a lot of you that are still needing to go through this work, to do this work? For survivors, and especially for autistic women, we're still looking at patterns. We're still looking for patterns. We're still problem solving and trying to make things make sense. And a lot of us are still completely floored by the behaviors that we're observing in our co-parent. And we think that the more we fight, the more we can get that person to change. And when all of that is so illogical and so unfair and actually so out of our control, our brain, the autistic brain, does not want to let go. It wants to solve it. It wants to understand. It wants to fix. It wants to prevent. It wants to control the situation. That's something I talked about I did 3 episodes on codependency. The second episode was linking the autistic traits to the codependent traits. The need for control is very present in autistic people. And that's where surrender is going to be a little bit of it might throw you for a loop a little bit. Surrender feels like losing control. But get this, you actually never had control over any of this in the first place. You never had any control over any of the pieces to begin with. The stuff that you went through and the behavior of your co-parent, you have no control. Let it go. Because if you don't surrender, it will be harder to break the codependency because you'll stay mentally enmeshed with the other person. You'll stay emotionally reactive. You'll keep scanning for danger and you'll waste your energy trying to control outcomes. And these are all points that we've covered in the journey so far. You're not going to be able to think clearly, to know what to document that stuff properly and stay composed and be perceived as stable if part of you is still fighting reality, refusing it, trying to control it, and pissing away all your energy doing that. Now, there's a difference between letting go, surrendering, and giving up. I'm trying to massage you through what could be the most triggering in this episode. Letting go, surrendering is not the same as giving up. Letting go is internal. It's a decision you make. You're in the driver's seat when you decide to let go. Giving up is external. You give up when outside circumstances overwhelm you. We're not going to give up. We have kids. We have mama bear instincts. We're not giving up. We're letting go internally in order to be able to act strategically. You'll act better, make better decisions after you let go. What are we letting go of? We're not letting go of our child, for those of us that are focused on custody issues or international situations. We're not letting go of our values. So we know who we are, we know what we stand for, we know that we want to protect our kids, we know that we're looking for something fair. We're not letting go of that, and we're not letting go of our goals. What you're letting go of, just to name a few examples that I thought about based on lived experience and on all the conversations that I'm having with women in this situation. The first thing I'd recommend you let go of is your identity as a victim. You're suffering. When you detach from this, you find freedom to decide and choose for yourself who you actually want to be and what kind of life you want to live. You're also needing to let go of the desire to control what's going on at the other parent's house. I have a blog post about this where I go deep on the concept of parallel parenting. With autistic kids, it would be crucial to work as a team between the two co-parents, but it won't be possible. And it is what it is. What can you control? The next thing that came to mind of what we're letting go of is the need for fairness, expecting the system to reflect what truly happened. That's not going to happen. Stories will be built around the evidence that's available, and those stories are not going to be the truth. Your lawyer and the other side's lawyers are going to grab pieces of evidence and they're going to build a story around that. And that can be particularly hard for autistic women because we're very attached to the truth. Let go of the idea that the other side will tell the truth. They'll just say whatever based on the emails and texts that you wrote, based on pictures and recordings that they obtained. And that won't be the truth necessarily. And that's okay. The need to control outcomes. So with an autistic brain, you can be very attached to an outcome of thinking about hearings, namely. You can be attached to an outcome that makes 100% sense to you, but you don't get it through the courts. You're very logical, you're thinking A plus B equals C, and therefore you're going in 100% sure that, of course, the judge is going to say A, B, C, and D, but that may very well not happen. In the earlier stages of the court battle, especially when you're still very much rooted in emotion and shooting yourself in the foot unknowingly, that may very well not happen. Until AI takes over the family court system, it will still be run by judges that can be emotionally swayed. And so you may very well not get what would make sense for you to obtain from the judge. When you detach from the outcome of a hearing, you protect yourself from going nuts. The outcome will seldom be exactly what you wanted or what makes sense from your perspective. Surrender to that. Detach, otherwise you will go mad. I'm seeing it in real life. Yes, it sucks. Yes, that court decision goes against the safety of the kids. Yes, been there. Most of us have been there, hearing after hearing in the earlier stages of the battle. Look at this as what it is. It is the reality. It sucks ass, and it is what it is. Stop fighting the reality inside your head. Detach from your view of what should have happened. Look the reality in the eye. Have a good cry. Give yourself a week or two to take stock. And then breathe. Breathe so you can go back to the drawing board with your legal team and keep moving forward. You cannot go nuts. Another thing we want to let go of is our ego. A lot of mistakes that I've made and that I'm seeing survivors make is, for example, we feel that the other side is acting stupid or that they're incompetent, and they say that they can't access the school email system, or no, they never spoke to this doctor, or no, they never saw this report. No problem. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you again. No problem. Oh, you forgot about this doctor that you met? No problem. Here's their email address, phone number, and here's the thread of the emails that you've exchanged with them. No problem. Sit on your ego so that you can show the course that you're trying to co-parent efficiently. You're really cooperative. You've given all the information time and time again, while the other co-parent is deficient. That is how you keep increasing that gap in behavior between the two. And that will be part of your strategy. That is something that your legal counsel and divorce coaches and the ones that win will be teaching you to do. That's one of the ways you do it, and you can't do it if you don't sit on your ego. Let it go. You'll have to let go of the need to be understood, of wanting the judge, namely your ex or the flying monkeys, your family, to finally get it. The judge is not your friend. Your ex may have a personality disorder. The flying monkeys have a mix of loyalties and survival instincts and cognitive dissonance and whatever's going on. They will never get it. Nobody will get it. It's you and your story. Let go of the need to be understood. It's between you and God. Let go of the timeline that you had in mind. Let go of how fast you thought things would evolve or improve. This battle is going to take years, and it will take you through losses and hurt and a bunch of bullshit. Yes, it will. Give it time. And the good thing about it lasting over years and years is that it gives you the time to go through the emotional detachment journey to then start turning it around. So give up, let go of the timeline you had in mind. You thought this would be over and done in 1 or 2 or 3 hearings. No, that's not the reality. That's not what's going to happen. And that's okay. It is what it is. Let go of the version of the other person that you hoped they could be, the version that you fell in love with, the masks that they may have been wearing for you to fall in love with them in the beginning, the future faking that you went through, the illusions that you built in your head. Let go of all of that and accept the reality. The person is likely incapable of accountability. They're likely incapable of empathy. They're likely deeply, deeply damaged and hurtful, and that will not change. And that's okay. Let go of the illusion of control over the narrative, thinking that you can manage how others perceive you. Your friends that haven't gone through it, they will not get it, and you can't control that. When you're trying to manage, you're wasting energy trying to manage and control how others perceive you. Let that go. That is also you're leaking energy when you do that. Okay, so these are just examples that came to my mind. But at this point in the emotional detachment journey, I'm sure you probably now have enough bandwidth to start seeing what you're attached to in your life, in your reality, and start being open to letting it go. Let it go. You have to let go of that idea that your peace and your emotional freedom, that's what you want, are tied to outcomes and tied to things that you cannot control. Okay, now you know how much I love talking about the nervous system. Surrender is also biological. When you're resisting, fighting, bracing for impact. When you're, in that Chinese finger trap and you're still fighting it, what your nervous system does is it remains in that space of the PTSD symptoms, hypervigilance, survival, scanning for threats, ruminating and reliving those stories. Surrender is going to allow your body, your nervous system to go, okay, I can stop fighting reality now. And that is when you can start focusing again, strategizing, hearing the great advice you may be receiving from legal professionals. That's when you start having more energy because you're not pissing it away, fighting that Chinese finger trap metaphor. So you need to get your nervous system to a point where it stops fighting reality. Sit in this pile of shit that is your reality. Accept it, let go of trying to control any of what you can't control. Quick reminder before I move on to the next angle, I'm on Facebook if you want to follow my page to chat with other people or see when I drop new episodes or any thoughts that I have to share. I'm on Facebook at Light in the Battle. And please also leave this show a 5-star review at this point so that the algorithms bring my content to the attention of single moms fighting for their kids' safety. Now I want to talk about surrender and faith. A wonderful gift that we have as Catholics, or really probably if you have any type of faith or spiritual life, is that you can trust that not everything is yours to carry. So you do your part in the physical realm. You send the right emails, you collect the right information, you strategize, you plan everything the way you're supposed to plan strategically and all that. And then you release the outcome to God. It's actually in His hands. Once you've done your part, the rest is in His hands, which you can't control. In my case, a little story time, one of the hearings was pushed back by 6 months. And I was mad because I was so ready. And there was an aspect in that hearing that had to be covered rather urgently. So I was mad that it was pushed back by 6 months. And I heard in a dream, Jesus was saying to me, it's done. It's done. Okay, so I surrendered to that idea. Jesus says, it's done, it's done. Next thing you know, within that 6-month period, other things happened, and I was able to gather even more impactful and more incriminating evidence, which turned the case around entirely when the hearing did take place. So that 6 months period, that was actually on purpose. That's where I learned surrender. That's where, in my journey, that's when the surrender happened, is when I heard him, when I got so mad because I was still trying to control and fighting reality and resisting what is. And then I heard, it's done. It's done. Okay. That's when I started letting go and trusting God through my process. And He was right, and I was right to trust Him. So whatever your entry into surrender may look like, I hope you get there. What surrender is going to unlock in your life is that instead of reacting from an emotional space, from a very raw nervous system, and instead of struggling against what is and explaining yourself over and over and hoping the other person to change and hoping people will understand what you go through, and you can now become calm, fully own what's happening, and you can become strategic. That's when the emotional detachment becomes real and you start seeing seeing its fruits in your life and in your legal battle. It unlocks when you're able to tell yourself that this is what it is. I don't like it. It's not good for the kids, but I accept that it exists. It's not telling yourself that it's fine, that it's good, or that it's fair. It just is. It is. Breathe. This shitty ass reality is what it is. So once you've created that space in your life, it's life changing. The surrender step in the journey is life changing. Once you surrender, you create that space, and in that space, you're going to be able to start grieving. You're going to be able to start feeling. Your nervous system and your emotions have been revolving around the situation for a very long time. Now you create that space, and your emotions, you can start feeling the emotion of what you lost, what should have been, and what will never be. And that's the next step in the journey. So surrender is a very, very brave, it's a display of mental strength. That's why it comes later in the season, because first you have to rebuild your nervous system, rebuild the way you look at things, get rid of your resentment, get rid of your trauma bond, to get to a point of strength and already some level of emotional freedom that you can surrender. You stop fighting reality and you start reclaiming your agency, the power that you do have over the things that you can control. You've gone through the worst state that you could be in. The outside circumstances, they were hard in the relationship. They were hard in the post-separation abuse, and they're going to keep being hard and maybe getting worse every now and then in the legal battle. But your mental state, the state of your nervous system, you've been through the hardest part of that journey. If you've worked on your trauma bond, you've worked on your PTSD, you've started to let go through forgiveness, working on your codependency, you've handled the hardest part of your life from the emotional and mental standpoint. So now I can get you to this uncomfortable space of surrender, because it is what sets you free. You detach. The outside sucks, and you over here, you're okay. You're free. You let go of what you cannot control so that you can show up where you actually have impact and power and control. Okay? Follow the show so we can continue on season 2 together. We're almost at the end of this journey. Make sure you take this life one day at a time. Your only job today is to stay standing until this evening, and you'll do that again tomorrow. We will see you next week to talk about grief.